All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. If you can hear me, please let me know. If you can't, please let me know. All right. So thank you for being here this afternoon. We've got a lot going on with COVID and practices and businesses being shut down. So this is a little bit of change of pace from what I'm sure most of us have been reading and reviewing as of late. But we really wanted to get this information out. We thought it'd be helpful to those that might be having some time to prepare their dental practice for a sale. So we put this together. Hopefully it's informative. It's going to be short and sweet, but give some what we hope are helpful tips to those that are preparing or helping prepare a dental practice for sale. So I'm going to go ahead and get started here. So my name is Chase Howard. I'm with the Florida Healthcare Law Firm. We focus our practice on all aspects of healthcare law. So whether it's dentists, physicians, nurses, veterinarian, or people that are in the healthcare business world. We're based in Delray Beach. I'll have some contact info at the end of this. If you want to reach out with any questions, happy to follow up on this presentation with any questions you have, and also any additional questions. And if you'd like a copy of the recording, we'll be posting it, but we'll also be able to email it to you as well. So if you're thinking about selling your practice, preparation in anything is really key. But in the sale of a practice, it is the difference between a successful sale and having seller's regret. You want to make sure you get the most value that you can out of your practice. It's something that you've spent, I'm sure, a lot of time working on and building. And we want to make sure that you get what it's worth and you get the value out of it. So step one, call your financial planner. As a law firm, you would think that our first step of advice would be call your lawyer, and it's in here, but really calling your financial planner is probably one of the most important things you can do in preparation for a sale of your dental practice. You want to make sure that you can afford to leave your business if you're retiring, or if you're moving, or if you're going to convert over to an employee. You want to make sure that you can financially afford to do so. Most buyers are going to require a comprehensive non-compete, and you should be certain that you are financially prepared to live with that, to work with that, whether it's retirement or full sale, or maybe you're moving. You want to make sure that you can live with that non-compete and those restrictive covenants prior to selling your practice. You also want to ensure that you're planning for the income that you're about to receive. Are there vehicles in place or options that you could put in place that are going to best ensure that the purchase price is either put to its best use for you or protected adequately? And then there's going to be some tax implications, and that'll lead us into the next step. But you also want to consider post-sale options if you're not going to be retiring. So are you going to be employed by the buyer? Are you selling to an associate and you're going to be phasing out? Are you just moving to a different part of the state or the country and then need to find new employment and open a practice? Speaking with your financial planner, planning for what's to come is a vital step, making sure that this is the right move for you, or that you're doing it right, or have the right considerations in place. Step two, visit your accountant. This is arguably one of the most important steps ahead of the sale. For a number of reasons, it really filters into some of the other pre-sale steps, but your business is only going to be worth as much as you can prove that it's worth, and a lot of that's going to be done on paper. If a potential buyer can't make sense of your accounts and your assets, then you're probably going to leave significant value on the table when it comes to defining a purchase price. Um, if the potential buyer can't see all those things, it could be troublesome for what you expect to get for your practice. You want to meet with your accountant so you can get your financial history in order. You want to review your tax returns, profit statements, accounts receivable, payroll history, and you want to do this for probably a period of 3 to 4 years. You can do further if you think it's necessary. I wouldn't do less than that. You really want to be able to show trends and what the practice is worth and capable of doing. You also want to maybe meet with your accountant to clean up any sort of creative bookkeeping that you've done over the years. You're going to have to promise, or likely have to promise to the buyer through transaction documents that your financial statements are true and accurate. And so, if you've got some creative accounting going on, that might not actually be true and accurate, and that could be a hurdle at the end of the deal that could blow everything up. So make sure you review those and clean them up with your accountant. You also could use your accountant to help you value the assets of your business, whether you've got equipment or payroll or certain employees, etc. Helping come up with a purchase price and breakdown of the assets is going to be valuable to both you and a buyer to determine what the purchase price really should be. If your accountant can't do that, then I would seek out an appraiser for certain items, especially for equipment. And if you own maybe the land that your practice is on or the building, that as well, if that's going to be a part of it. And then also discuss company structure. You might have certain restructuring needs, as far as corporation goes, or you may need to transition to a different type of structure for tax purposes and avoiding significant taxes and finding out creative ways and legal ways, of course, to prepare for a large sum of money coming in. Finally, visit your legal counsel. We highly suggest that you do not have a handshake deal and just do everything verbally. Why? Because the sale of a practice and businesses in general are going to require and entail a lot of terms, whether it's for assets and purchase price and maybe restrictions. So we really want to make sure that you paper everything to protect you. And most buyers are probably going to aim to do that anyway because they're putting forth a significant sum of money, and they're going to want to make sure that what they're buying is what they're going to get. And if they don't get that, then they've got some sort of recourse. So sale of a dental practice is going to require significant paperwork. It's in order to really protect you, from outstanding liabilities as well. You don't want to take those liabilities with you into retirement or to your new career. And a buyer is going to require also significant promises from you in order to pay a full purchase price. You may only be paid, half up front and half upon, completion of certain tasks and maybe a transitionary period, et cetera. So a buyer is going to want to ensure that you live up to your end of the deal as well. You'll also want to review your corporate structure and documents with an attorney. Your attorney and CPA can get together on this for tax purposes and legal purposes. But on the legal side, most importantly, you want to make sure that if there's anything you need to do to, an operating agreement or shareholders agreement for the company, that you do that, you revise it, you update it. You want to make sure that if there's any renewals coming up, that your, corporation or your fictitious name are kept up to date. And then discuss, if you're selling stock in the company or only assets. That'll determine, if there's going to be changes to your company structure. And then finally, is the business in your name or is it a generic name? If it's in your name and you're selling the company, you may need to change that name. You don't want your name being used for someone else's business going forward if you're not going to be a part of it. You'll also want to send out, you'll need to send out, in fact, notices to insurers, to vendors, to Medicare, to the Agency for Healthcare Administration, and similar entities. You want to advise them of this potential sale and let them know that there's going to be some sort of change in ownership. And then with your legal advisor, you're also going to want to discuss, process and timeline of a deal. Drafting of documents and due diligence period will really, could really take up a lot of time. It could be, as short as a couple of months, but it could be a full year or longer, depending upon the complexity of the practice. You'll also want to review any contracts and loans that are important to your business. Make sure that a sale of your practice isn't going to make you default on any sort of contract or loan, and be aware of what's out there so you can disclose that to the potential buyer. And if you have an offer already that might outline, the transition period of employment or payment terms, you'll want to start to review that with counsel so you can make sure those options are, the right fit for you before moving too far forward. Step 4, preparing for due diligence. So due diligence is a period where the potential buyer gets to review almost everything about the practice, if not everything about the practice, and ensure that it's right for them. Ensure that there's no big red flags. Ensure that there's nothing hiding. Ensure that it is what it says it is and what they're buying. And it's really key that you prepare, for this period. You want a smooth and efficient process versus a long, drawn-out process with potential pitfalls, and especially when you get to the finish line, if something's outstanding, you don't want the buyer to blow up the deal just because of that, if you're almost there. So you'll want to start to gather all of your business documents, contracts, records, leases, certifications, policies, procedures, loans, employment documents, and the like, and really anything that's going to affect the practice or going to be going to the buyer, even if it's an equipment lease, or if it's a phone lease that you've got. You're going to want to gather all these things so the buyer has it, can review it, can determine what they're buying, what they're not buying, what needs to be converted, and what needs to be canceled. So the more organized you are, the better. And certainly, taking the time to make sure that you have electronic copies of these as well is going to be significant. We work in a world now where you don't need to just mail a package, but you can email it and have it instantly. That'll help with the process and keep it efficient. And we've seen where disorganization has scared off buyers. So this is key. You've got lots of documents pertaining to your practice, and they may be paper, they may be at home, they may be all over the place. So take the time to really get them together and be well organized. Step 5: are you going to be working with a broker? So you may be approached by a buyer. There may be a private equity group that comes to town, or there may be a larger group in town, or it's a new practitioner who's finishing training and wants to open up a shop or buy a practice. So that's one way. But the other way is to list your business with the broker. You want to make sure that people are aware that you're selling your practice and it's available, and there might be greater exposure through a broker than just through a local community thread of sorts. Or a broker might bring this to the attention of a larger group or a private equity group. So there's benefits to working with brokers. But before signing with the broker, you want to make sure that scope of service is clearly defined. You want to know what the broker is going to be providing to you in regards to services. You also want to know who's going to be doing the negotiating. It's great to have a broker and bring potential buyers to you, but you don't want the broker to be able to bind you or obligate you to any party. They can help facilitate, but you really need to have the final sort of approval and say. You don't want to give them the opportunity to put you into a bad deal. You also want to know who's representing you, and when you sign an agreement with a broker, this can be defined in there. But is it one broker, or is it a team of brokers? Who's going to be the point person that you're working with, so you can have a clear understanding of what you want to get out of this deal. And And then finally, make sure that terms of commissions and fees are really clear. These can be large commissions. I've seen 15%, 10%, 20%. And you really want to make sure that they're only paid and paid in full if the broker earns it, if the sale actually occurs, and if there's no hiccups that would put you on the hook to have to pay the broker if something happens. So really review documents with brokers, make sure that it's a favorable contract and that it's clear and there's a good understanding of who does what. And finally, step 6, negotiating a letter of intent with your purchaser. So prior to diving into a large purchase agreement, parties and prospective buyers are going to want to present a letter of intent that outlines major points of a deal. This letter of intent is going to be a guideline for both parties and their attorneys and accountants as well, so they can not only work on and finalize, purchase documents, but gather everything that's needed and understand kind of where this is going to go. If the major terms don't make sense to you, then the minor terms are not going to make sense, and it's not going to be a good deal to do. And keep in mind that the letter of intent, if it's not drafted by the seller, but it's drafted by the buyer, it's negotiable. So if you're presented with one, know that it's negotiable. It should be reviewed by counsel and your accountant, and take the time to do that, review it, and propose any sort of changes to it prior to signing it. It's your practice. You're in control of it until you find the right deal for you. So I wanted to thank you for joining us. I know that was short, but wanted to give some tips to sort of help you start to think about what you need to do if you're going to be selling your practice. All of our contact information is here. As I said, please feel free to reach out via email if you've got follow-up questions. We'll be posting the recording of this video, I think on YouTube, and I'm sure on our Facebook pages and LinkedIn and on our website. So you'll be able to get that. We've got a ton of free content on our website in regards to dental practices and sales. So definitely check that out. And we'll look forward to seeing you at our next webinar.